There are places in this world that maps refuse to explain. Places where something happened and no one ever found the full truth. I've spent most of my life chasing stories like these, through abandoned facilities, forgotten towns, and moments people would rather erase from history. Some of what I found changed the way I see the world forever. Tonight, I want to share one of those stories with you. And trust me, by the end of it, you may never look at this case the same way again.
This story is a work of fiction. All characters, events, locations, and situations shown in this video are entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes only. Any resemblance to real people, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. I still remember the sound of the rain that night. Not heavy rain, not the kind that makes you pull off the road, just a quiet, steady tapping against the windshield. The kind of rain that makes every empty highway feel longer than it really is. It was a little after 2 in the morning, and I was driving east on Route 18 just outside Bryan County. Back then, I was still wearing the badge. Small town patrol, graveyard shift, long hours, too much coffee. Too many quiet roads where nothing happened until suddenly everything did. Most people think police work is loud. Sirens, radios, shouting, doors kicked open. But the truth is, some of the worst moments begin in silence. That night began with a broken taillight. An old grey sedan was moving ahead of me, slow and careful, like the driver was trying not to make a single mistake. The left taillight was out. Nothing dramatic, nothing suspicious on its own. I turned on my lights. The road lit up red and blue. The sedan pulled over immediately. No hesitation. No swerving. No panic. Just a clean, obedient stop of an empty rural highway. I parked behind it, called in the plate, and stepped out into the rain. I remember the wet asphalt shining under my headlights. I remember the fields on both sides of the road disappearing into darkness. I remember thinking it would be a warning, maybe a citation, and then I would go back to driving circles around a sleeping town. That was before she rolled down the window. The driver was a woman in her 30s. Thin face, tired eyes, dark hair pulled back like she had done it in a hurry. She looked straight ahead at first, not at me. Both hands were on the steering wheel, but her right hand was shaking, not a nervous little tremor, shaking, hard, like every muscle in her body was fighting against something she refused to show on her face. And that hand was resting beside an old photograph on the dashboard. I noticed the photograph before I noticed anything else in the car. People keep all kinds of things on dashboards: parking slips, sunglasses, little religious cards, fast food receipts. But that photo was placed there too carefully, not dropped, placed, almost displayed. I leaned down slightly. Evening, ma'am. You know why I stopped you? She swallowed once. My taillight. Her voice was soft, flat, too controlled. That caught my attention. Fear is strange. Sometimes it makes people frantic. Sometimes it makes them talk too much. And sometimes it makes them very, very calm. I looked past her and saw a man sitting in the passenger seat. He was about 40, neatly trimmed hair, hands folded in his lap. He smiled at me, not friendly, polite. There's a difference. Sorry about that, officer, he said. We didn't realize it was out. I nodded. License and registration, please. The woman reached into her purse. That right hand kept shaking. She tried to steady it with her left, but that only made it more obvious. Then she glanced at me, only for half a second, and said something I've never forgotten. Can you please just let me go? Now, on paper, that sounds simple. A tired woman at 2 in the morning asking not to get a ticket. But it wasn't the words. It was how she said them. She didn't sound annoyed. She didn't sound impatient. She sounded like she was asking me to hear the opposite of what came out of her mouth. Can you please just let me go? But her eyes said, please don't. I kept my face neutral. That's something you learn after enough years on the job. Never let the room know what you've noticed. Never let the car know what you've noticed, especially when you're not sure who is dangerous and who is afraid. What's your name, ma'am? Claire Holloway. And your passenger? My husband, Evan. The man gave me a small nod. Evan Holloway, he said. We're coming back from my mother's house. She lives out near Fairmont. Long night. He answered too fast. That was the second thing. When someone tells the truth, they usually answer the question asked. Maybe they add a little detail. Maybe they don't. But Evan gave me a full explanation before I asked for one. Where they were coming from. Why they were out late. Why I shouldn't be concerned. It sounded clean. Too clean. I took their licenses and registration. Before I stepped away, I looked once more at Claire's hand. It was still near the photograph. Tap, tap, tap. Her finger touched the edge of it 3 times. Not randomly. 3 small taps against the paper. Then her eyes flicked to mine, and back down. I didn't react. I walked back to my cruiser and sat behind the wheel while rain blurred the windshield. Dispatch ran the names. Claire Holloway. Clean. Evan Holloway. Clean. No warrants. No active protection orders. No stolen vehicle report. Nothing that would give me a legal reason to hold them. Then dispatch added one more note. Evan Holloway was interviewed in connection with a missing person case approximately 6 months ago. No charges filed. I remember sitting there with my hand still on the radio. I said, Evan Holloway, interviewed during the Lily Harper investigation. Lily Harper. That name had been on flyers all over town that winter. 22 years old, worked part-time at a roadside diner. Last seen leaving after a late shift. Car found 2 days later near an old service road. No body, no confession, no charges, no closure. In small towns, missing people don't disappear all at once. They fade. First they're on every bulletin board. Then the flyers curl at the corners. Then someone puts a new poster over them. Then people stop saying the name unless the family brings it up. But some names stick. Lily Harper stuck. I looked up at the sedan. Claire was watching me through the side mirror. The second our eyes met, she looked away. Even didn't move at all. I called Sheriff Tom Bennett. He had been sheriff longer than I had been on the department. Good man in many ways. But like a lot of men who carry a badge too long, he had learned to distrust anything that didn't come with paperwork. He answered with a tired voice, Mercer, this better be good. I've got Evan Holloway on a traffic stop. There was a pause. Where? Route 18, East Shoulder. Broken taillight. Another pause. Then he said, write the warning and clear it. He was connected to Lily Harper. He was questioned. Half the county was questioned. The wife is scared. Did she say that? No. Did he threaten her? No. Any visible injuries? Not that I can confirm. Then you have a nervous woman and a bad taillight. I watched Claire through the rain. Her hand moved again, back toward that photograph. I said, something's wrong. Bennett sighed. Daniel, don't do this. I knew what he meant. There had been another case years before. Another young woman. Another night when something didn't sit right with me. A witness had tried to tell me something without really telling me. I didn't push. I followed protocol, wrote my report, and went home. That woman was never found. Nobody blamed me. That was the worst part. Because I blamed myself enough for everyone. Bennett's voice softened. You're seeing the old case in this one. Maybe. Then be careful. I am. No. I mean, be careful with your own head. He hung up. I sat there for another few seconds. That's the thing about instinct. It can save a life. It can also make a fool out of you. And after enough years in police work, you learn that being right too late feels exactly the same as being wrong. I stepped back into the rain. This time, Evan rolled down the passenger window before Claire could roll down hers. That bothered me too. "Everything all right, officer?" he asked. "Just a few more questions." Of course. His tone stayed perfect. I moved slightly toward Claire's side. "Mrs. Holloway, can you step out for a moment?" Her face changed, only a little, but fear moved through her eyes so fast it was like a shadow crossing a window. Evan turned his head toward her, not sharply, not angrily, just enough, and she froze. I said, "It's routine." Claire opened the door slowly and stepped onto the wet shoulder. She was shorter than I expected, maybe 5'4". Thin coat, no umbrella. Rain immediately began collecting in her hair. I guided her a few steps back, keeping her visible to my dash camera but just far enough that Evan couldn't hear every word. "Have you been drinking tonight?" "No." "Any medication?" "No." "Are you feeling all right?" "Yes." She said yes, but while she said it, she shook her head, barely. Most people would have missed it. I didn't. "Is there anything you need to tell me?" She looked past me toward the sedan. Evan sat perfectly still. Then Claire looked down at the ground and whispered, "No." Her hand slipped into her coat pocket. I watched carefully. She pulled out a folded gas station receipt. For 1 second, she held it between 2 fingers. Then she let it fall. It landed near my boot in a shallow puddle. She didn't look at it, didn't apologize, didn't bend down. That's when I knew. Whatever was happening, she was doing it on purpose. And whatever she was afraid of, she believed he was watching close enough to notice in everything except an accident. I didn't pick it up. Not right away. I just said, "All right, Mrs. Holloway, you can get back in the vehicle." Her face tightened, not relief, disappointment. That hurt to see. I walked back to the sedan, handed Evan the documents, and gave him a warning for the taillight. He smiled again. "Appreciate your discretion, officer." That word, discretion. People don't usually say that during a traffic stop. I looked at Claire one last time. Her hand rested on the steering wheel. Still shaking, the sedan pulled away slowly and disappeared into the rain. Only after the taillights were gone did I bend down and pick up the receipt. It was from a gas station outside Briar Creek. Purchased at 1:12 a.m. 1 bottled water, 1 pack of mints. On the back, written in small careful letters, was an address. No name, no explanation, just an address I recognized. Old Mill Road. There was an abandoned farmhouse out there. At least we all thought it was abandoned. I stood alone on the shoulder for a long moment, rain hitting the brim of my hat, that receipt softening in my hand. I could have gone back to the station. I could have logged it as suspicious behavior. I could have told myself there wasn't enough, and I would have been right. But I had been right once before, and a woman vanished anyway. So I got in my cruiser and drove toward Old Mill Road. The farmhouse sat about 15 miles outside town, past 2 soybean fields and a rusted water tower nobody had used in years. No lights were on when I arrived. No vehicles in the driveway. No movement in the windows. From the road, it looked dead. But houses have a way of telling you when someone has been inside. Fresh tire tracks marked the mud near the side entrance. Not old. The rain would have softened them if they were old. I parked without headlights and walked up with my flashlight low. The porch sagged under my weight. The boards were wet and soft. I knocked once. No answer. The front door was not locked. Now, that put me in a difficult position. An address handed to me under suspicious circumstances. A property possibly connected to a missing person. No warrant. No confirmed emergency. But I had fresh tracks, an unsecured door, and the possibility that someone inside needed help. I entered, slowly. Sheriff's department. I called. Anyone inside? No answer. The house smelled damp, like old wood and closed rooms. My flashlight crossed covered furniture, peeling wallpaper, empty picture hooks on the wall. At first, I thought there was nothing. Then I saw the kitchen. A mug sat beside the sink. Clean water still clung to the inside. Someone had used it recently. Beside it was a plate with 2 crumbs on it. Not much, but enough. I moved through the downstairs rooms. Nothing. Then near the hallway table, half hidden under a folded blanket, I found a drawing. At first glance, it looked like a child's drawing. A house, a tree, a woman in a square window, but the hand that drew it wasn't a child's. The lines were too controlled in places, too shaky in others. At the bottom, written in blue crayon, were 3 words. Don't make noise. I looked toward the staircase. The house seemed to listen back. I went up slowly. Every old board complained under my boots. At the end of the upstairs hallway was a closed door with a padlock on the outside. That made the hair on my arms rise. People lock rooms for all kinds of reasons, but they don't usually lock empty bedrooms from the outside. I moved closer. Then I heard something, a soft scrape, maybe a foot, maybe a chair, maybe the house settling. I held still. Sheriff's department, I said. If someone is inside, I'm here to help. Silence. Then a sound came from downstairs, a sharp thud. I turned fast and moved back toward the stairs, one hand on my weapon, the other on the flashlight. By the time I reached the kitchen, the back door was open. Rain blew in across the floor. Someone had been in that house with me, and now they were gone. I searched the property, the shed, the tree line. Nothing, just rain and mud and darkness. When I went back upstairs, I found one more thing. Under the bed in the locked room, tucked between the floorboard and the wall, there was a silver bracelet. Small, delicate. The kind a young woman might wear every day without thinking about it. On the inside were 2 engraved letters. L.H. Lily Harper. I carried that bracelet back to the station in an evidence bag, and by then it was almost 4 in the morning. Sheriff Bennett was already waiting for me. He looked at the bag, then at me. You went to the farmhouse. I did, without calling me first. I called you earlier. That is not the same thing. I placed the bracelet on his desk. Found upstairs. Locked room. Initials L.H. Bennett stared at it. For a moment, I saw something move in his face. Concern. Then the sheriff took over again. That doesn't prove it's Lily's. No. But it proves someone was there. It proves you found jewelry in an old house. There was fresh water in the kitchen. Fresh tire tracks outside. A drawing that said, "Don't make noise." He leaned back, and no person. I hated how often procedure sounded like indifference. But I also knew why it existed. Bad instincts ruin lives too. Bennett rubbed his eyes. Daniel, listen to me. Evan Holloway was questioned because Lily worked at a diner he used to visit. That's all. No evidence. No witnesses. No physical connection. Claire gave me that address. You don't know that. You think she did. She dropped the receipt in front of me. Maybe she dropped trash. She shook her head while saying everything was fine. Maybe she's scared of cops. She was trying to tell me something. Bennett's voice lowered. Or maybe you needed her to be. That one landed. He didn't say it cruelly. That almost made it worse. 'Cause part of me had been wondering the same thing. Was I seeing what was there? Or seeing what I missed years before? I left the station without answering. When you're younger, you think guilt makes you reckless. It doesn't always. Sometimes guilt makes you hesitate, because you don't trust yourself anymore. I spent the next morning going back through the Lily Harper file. No, not officially. Not yet. Just reading. Lily was 22. No criminal record. Worked at Miller's Diner on the county road. Lived alone in a small apartment over a hardware store. Parents out of state. Few close friends. Her final known shift ended at 10:48 p.m. She was seen leaving the diner alone. Her car was later found near a service road with no signs of a crash. Purse gone. Phone gone. No confirmed sightings after that. Evan Holloway had been interviewed because he had eaten at the diner several times that month. He admitted speaking to Lily once or twice, claimed nothing beyond small talk. His statement was calm, detailed, helpful. Too helpful, I thought now. But that wasn't evidence. In the afternoon, I went to Miller's Diner. It was the kind of place that always smelled like coffee, grill grease, and old vinyl booths. The kind of place where people don't need menus because they order the same thing every time. A waitress named Marlene remembered Lily immediately. Sweet girl, she told me. Quiet, but not weak. That detail mattered. People often confuse quiet with weak. They're not the same thing. I asked if Lily knew Evan Holloway. Marlene looked toward the windows before answering. He came in sometimes, alone, usually. Did Lily talk to him? She talked to everybody. It was her job. What about Claire? At Claire's name, Marlene's expression changed. She came in more than he did. That surprised me. Alone? Sometimes. What was she like? Marlene wiped the counter even though it was already clean. She always looked tired. Not messy. Not messy. Not bruised up. Nothing like that. Just watched. Like she was always waiting for the wrong person to walk in. I stayed quiet. Marlene continued. One day Lily sat with her during break. I remember because Lily didn't usually sit with customers. What did they talk about? Couldn't hear all of it. But Marlene looked at me. Claire asked if there were any women's shelters nearby. That changed the air between us. She said it was for a friend. Marlene added. They always do, I said. Marlene nodded slowly. Then she said, a week later, Lily disappeared. On my way out of the diner, I noticed an old missing flyer still taped near the payphone. The paper had yellowed. The edges had curled. Lily's photo stared out from beneath the plastic tape. Young, unsuspecting, alive. I stood there longer than I should have, because I was beginning to understand something. This was not just about Evan and Lily. Claire was in the middle of it. But I still didn't know whether she was a victim, a witness, or something worse. That uncertainty stayed with me until I went back through the dashcam footage from the traffic stop. I watched it once, then again, then a third time. Claire's hand, the photograph, the tapping, the receipt. The way Evan answered before she could. The way Claire looked at me when she said, "Can you please just let me go?" Then I paused the video on the dashboard photo. It was blurry, but enough. The photograph showed Claire and Evan standing in front of a farmhouse. Old Mill Road, same house. Evan had one arm around Claire's shoulders. She was smiling, but not with her eyes. The photo looked ordinary at first. Then I noticed something in the upstairs window, a shape behind the curtain. I enlarged the image as much as the system allowed. The quality was poor, but I could make out a face. A young woman, standing behind the glass, watching. I printed the image and compared it to Lily Harper's missing flyer. Same hairline, same jaw, same shape of the face, not perfect, but close enough to make my stomach tighten. That photograph had been taken after Lily disappeared. I knew that because the farmhouse porch had a broken railing in the photo, and county records showed that railing had been damaged during a storm 2 months after Lily vanished. Lily Harper had been alive months after everyone thought she was gone. And Claire Holloway had carried that proof on her dashboard like a flare in the dark. Now I understood the tapping. She had not been pointing at herself. She had been pointing at the photo, at the window, at Lily. I took the printout to Bennett. He stared at it for a long time, longer than before. "This is thin," he said, "but it's something. It's not enough for a warrant. Then help me make it enough." He looked up. "You need to slow down." "No?" My answer came faster than I expected. Bennett's eyes narrowed. "No, no." Slowed down once before. The room went quiet. "He knew what I meant," I said. "A woman tried to tell me something years ago. I wrote it off because she didn't say it cleanly, because she didn't give me a perfect statement, because I wanted everything to fit inside a report box." Bennett didn't interrupt. I tapped the photo. "Claire is talking. She's just not using words." For the first time, Bennett didn't argue, but he still said, "You go near Evan Holloway again, you do it by the book." So I did. We started with a welfare check. Not dramatic, not aggressive. 2 deputies and me. Holloway residence. Rain again. I remember that detail because it felt like the night had come back to finish what it started. Evan opened the door before we knocked twice. Same clean clothes, same calm face, same rehearsed politeness. "Officer Mercer," he said. "This is becoming a habit. We need to speak with Claire. My wife isn't feeling well. Then we'll ask her that ourselves." A small pause. Not enough for a jury, enough for me. He stepped aside. The house was clean, too clean, no clutter, no shoes by the door, no mail on the table. No signs of ordinary life. Claire sat in the kitchen with both hands around a mug. She looked smaller than she had on the roadside. There was a mark on her wrist. Not dramatic, not enough to build a case around by itself, but I saw it. "Claire," I said, "we need to ask you about the farmhouse on Old Mill Road." Her eyes went to Evan immediately. That was the answer before she spoke. Evan said, "That property belonged to my uncle. We haven't used it in years." I looked at Claire. "Is that true?" She opened her mouth. No sound came out. Evan laughed softly, not a real laugh, a warning disguised as amusement. My wife gets overwhelmed easily. I placed the printed photograph on the kitchen table. Claire stopped breathing for a second. Evan did not. That told me he had seen it before. "This was taken at the farmhouse," I said. Evan looked at it politely. So, there's someone in the upstairs window." He leaned over. Reflection, maybe. Looks like Lily Harper. His expression changed, only for half a second. The mask slipped just enough. Then he smiled. "Officer, that girl disappeared. It was tragic. But you're seeing things." I turned to Claire. "Claire, I need you to listen to me. If someone is in danger, this is the moment to tell us." Her eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head, and for a second I thought we had lost her. Then she looked at the photograph, not at Evan, not at Mimi, at the photograph. Her finger moved toward the window, one tiny motion. Then she whispered, "I'm sorry." Evan stood. "That's enough." One deputy shifted closer. I said, "Sit down, Evan." He looked at me with something cold behind his eyes. The politeness was gone now, not all of it, just enough to reveal what it had been covering. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said. Claire flinched. And there it was, not proof, but truth. Some truths enter a room before evidence catches up. The radio on my shoulder cracked. One of the deputies outside had checked Evan's vehicle in the driveway. He reported fresh mud under the wheel wells. Same reddish clay as Old Mill Road. Bennett had been waiting for that. He moved fast once he had enough. A judge signed the warrant based on the photo, the bracelet, the fresh tracks, the witness statement from the diner, and the welfare concerns. By the time we returned to the farmhouse, the rain had turned the yard into mud. We searched the house room by room. This time, nobody called it abandoned. The kitchen had food hidden behind old paint cans. The upstairs locked room had a blanket under the bed. There were scratch marks inside the closet door. And in the glove compartment of an old car parked behind the shed, we found a folded drawing, same blue crayon, same shaky handwriting. But this one said, "Claire knows." That line stayed with me. Claire knows, not me. Not "I'm here." Claire knows, which meant Lily had trusted her, or depended on her, or both. We searched for nearly 40 minutes before one of the younger deputies noticed the basement wall. Too clean. That was the phrase he used. Wall looks too clean. He was right. The rest of the basement was old stone and dust. But one section of paneling looked newer than everything around it. Behind a shelving unit, there was a hidden latch. I stood there with my flashlight on it, and for a moment nobody moved. Because every officer knows that feeling, the second before a door opens. The second before a case becomes something you can never unknow. We pulled the shelf aside, opened the panel. Behind it was a narrow room, a mattress, a lamp, bottles of water, a stack of books, and Lily Harper, alive. She was sitting against the far wall with a blanket pulled around her shoulders, thin, pale, eyes too wide, but alive. For a few seconds, nobody said anything. Then I lowered my flashlight away from her face. "Lily," I said softly. "My name is Caleb Ross. I'm with the sheriff's department. You're safe now." She stared at me like the words had no meaning. Then she looked past me. "Claire," she whispered. That was when I understood the full shape of it. Not all at once, but enough. Lily wasn't asking about Evan. She wasn't asking where she was. She was asking about Claire. Back at the Holloway house, Evan was in cuffs. The mosque was gone by then. People like him spend years building calm into a weapon. But once control slips, they don't know what to do with their hands, their face, their voice. Kept saying we misunderstood. He said Lily was unstable. He said Claire had imagined things. He said everyone was confused. He said it with less confidence each time. Claire sat at the kitchen table while a deputy took her statement. I stayed nearby, not pushing. Sometimes silence is the only space a person has left. After a while, she looked at me and said, "I wasn't trying to save myself." I nodded. "I know." Her eyes filled again. He told me if I left, she would stop getting food. If I talked, he would move her somewhere no one would find her. If I called anyone, he would know. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I tried to get help before, but every time someone asked if I was okay, I said yes. That sentence is one I wish more people understood. Fear doesn't always say no. Sometimes fear says yes because yes is safer. Claire told us Lily had confronted Evan months and months earlier after seeing how he treated Claire at the diner. Lily had offered Claire help, place to go, a number to call. Evan found out. At first, he made it sound like Lily had run away. Then he made Claire believe nobody would care if Lily stayed gone. Then he used Lily to keep Claire obedient and Claire to keep Lily quiet. Two women trapped in different rooms of the same nightmare, one behind a hidden wall, one behind a normal front door, and the whole town drove past both. Claire said she kept the photograph because she noticed Lily in the window after it was printed. She had no safe way to bring it to police. Evan watched her phone, her car, her money, her conversations. So she waited for a broken taillight, for a traffic stop, for one officer to notice the thing she could not say. That part still gets me. She didn't plan some perfect escape. She didn't have a dramatic confession ready. She had a shaking hand, a photograph, a receipt, and hope. That was all. Lily survived. I want to be clear about that. She survived. But survival is not the same as walking away untouched. There are rooms people leave physically before they can leave them in their sleep. Lily had a long road ahead. So did Claire. Evan Holloway was arrested that night. The charges came later, serious ones. Enough to keep him from controlling anyone for a very long time. But the part I remember most wasn't the arrest. It was the morning after. The rain had stopped. I drove back to the same stretch of Route 18 where I had pulled Claire over. I don't know why. Maybe cops do that more than they admit. Return to the place where everything almost went wrong. Stand there and measure the distance between a choice and a tragedy. The shoulder was quiet, no flashing lights, no grey sedan, just wet asphalt shining under the first pale light of sunrise. Sheriff Bennett pulled up behind me after a while. He walked over with 2 cups of gas station coffee and handed me one. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You were right. I looked down the road. I was almost too late, but you weren't. That should have comforted me. It didn't, not completely. Because police work teaches you something uncomfortable. You don't get to save everyone, and when you do save someone, you still remember how close you came to missing it." Bennett looked at the empty shoulder. "What made you sure?" I thought about that. The truth was, no single thing made me sure. Not the hand, not the receipt, not the photograph, not Evan's calm voice. It was all of it. Tiny pieces that didn't belong together unless someone was trying to build a message out of silence. So I said, her hand was asking for help before she could. Bennett didn't answer. He just nodded. Years later, after I retired, people would sometimes ask what case stayed with me the most. They expected the loud ones, the violent ones, the ones with headlines. But I always think about Claire Holloway on that empty highway. I think about that old photograph on the dashboard. I think about Lily Harper behind the glass. And I think about how close I came to doing what would have looked reasonable on paper. Writing a warning, telling them to fix the taillight, letting them drive away. That's the part people outside the job don't always understand. Evil doesn't always arrive shouting. Sometimes it sits politely in the passenger seat. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it explains everything before you ask. And sometimes the person who needs help will look you in the eye and say the exact opposite. "Can you please just let me go?" I kept that receipt for a long time, not as evidence. That stayed in the case file. Another copy. A reminder. Because the longer you do this job, the more you learn that listening is not just about words. It's about the pause before the answer, the glance toward the passenger seat, the hand that won't stop shaking, the photograph placed where someone might notice, the yes that sounds like no. That morning, standing on Route 18, I watched the sun come up over the fields. The road looked ordinary again. Most roads do, after the lights are gone. But I knew better. Somewhere along that shoulder, a woman had risked everything with a receipt and a trembling hand. And because of that, another woman came home. I finished my coffee, got back in my cruiser, and took one last look at the empty highway. Then I said something I still believe. Sometimes people ask for help without saying a single word.